The trailing drawdown. It's the latest scam in the prop firm industry, particularly in the instant funding space, but now showing up in challenge accounts at some firms too. Okay, maybe scam is too harsh of a word, but it's not so much the fact that they're using trailing drawdown as it is the fact that they're hiding it and disguising it behind weird marketing jargon terms, and they're burying the actual terms of trailing drawdown and the definition of trailing drawdown in the fine print of their websites. In this video, I'll be walking you through exactly what trailing drawdown is, why prop firms are using it, how it impacts you as a trader, and what alternatives are out there that have more honest and straightforward rules. If you're new here, I'm Cameron, full-time funded algo trader, and this channel is all about helping you find sustainability and long-term freedom in the markets through automated trading. There's no hype, no gimmicks, just true stories through valuable insight. With that, let's jump into today's topic. So first, we're going to talk about what exactly is trailing drawdown. And for that, I'm going to jump into the whiteboard and we're going to draw some pictures here to kind of showcase how trailing drawdown, like we like to do here. Okay. And then we will, the blue will represent our starting balance. Okay. So this just basically represents whatever balance account we're purchasing or we're getting into, 100K, 50K, whatever it happens to be. Okay. The red will be our initial drawdown, right? Let's say that that's like 10%. Typically, these firms that have, especially on the instant funding side, they have trailing drawdown. They like to start you with a big number because it feels like you're getting a ton of drawdown and it's this massive advantage to you, right? So 10% initial drawdown, but then maybe you've got a trailing drawdown of 5%. In some cases, the trailing drawdown is equal to the full amount, and we'll show this in a second. It's equal to the full amount of the actual drawdown, and that to me is absolutely insane, and I would never use an account that has that rule, and I'll explain why a little bit later in this video. But let's say, for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of optimism, that we're talking about a firm here that has their trailing drawdown set to half the amount of the initial drawdown, right? So this is sort of what it looks like. You've got your starting balance here, and then you start trading with a drawdown that's down here, but then it's going to trail up to this zone. So what does that look like in practice? Let's leave this up here for reference, right? So as we start trading in this account, we started our starting balance here, and we've got this drawdown that's represented by the dotted line. Okay, it's very simple, right? You have to trade this account without letting the balance of that account or the equity, those are two different things, but similar, going down. You just can't allow it to go down below this red line. If you do, that's a breach, and now you've lost your account, right? That's straightforward. That's what every prop firm does. So what's the actual difference here with a trailing drawdown? Well, your trailing drawdown is actually going to start at the exact same place that your regular drawdown starts, right? So you've got both of those lines at the same exact spot. As your equity or balance starts to go up, your trailing drawdown goes up with it, right? So the distance between your trailing drawdown and your balance or equity will always be 10% in this example. So this is still 10% here, right? Now the trick actually happens when you start to take losses in the market, or not even realize losses. And this is the big trick, and it's super important to understand this. It's not about realized losses. You can have an account start to gain money from an equity standpoint, and you could be up $800 in a trade or $1,000 in a trade. Let's call it 1%. But now that trade starts to go against you and you haven't closed it yet. Well, your drawdown has already trailed up. Okay, so now you're up some amount here, and your drawdown has trailed with it. If this starts to move back this way, well, you still have this trailing drawdown fixed at this value. So as the markets go up, the trailing drawdown goes up. As the markets go down, the trailing drawdown stays flat. So all of a sudden, this account that you had, that you started with 10% drawdown here, well, you don't actually have 10% drawdown anymore. Maybe you have more like 6%. And by the way, is absolutely not representative of, it's not to scale, let's put it that way, but the concept here is still the same, right? So now all of a sudden, you wake up the following day after having, maybe taken some losses in the market the previous day, and your trailing drawdown is moved up. So your true drawdown on that account is no longer 10%. In fact, your drawdown is 10% for maybe a second or two. After you place your first trade and you see any amount of gains, that 10% drawdown is gone because the trailing drawdown has now superseded it. The trick here with the prop firms is there's a couple things. We'll get into this in more detail, but they've now sold you on an account that says, hey, you can get into this account. It's 100K and you get 10% drawdown. So you're thinking, wow, I can trade with 10K basically. If you're smart and you're looking at it for what it truly is, it's a 10K account. It's not a 100K account, it's a 10K account. If they introduce trailing drawdown of 5% in this account, you're really trading with 5K. So now you've been sold an account that initially, from a marketing standpoint, from a purchasing decision-making standpoint, where you feel like you've got 10K of risk that you could take on this account. Well, really, you've got 5K. And it actually is even worse when you get to the point of getting your first withdrawal, because after you take the withdrawal, and then, if you have an account that's 100K and you go straight up to 110K, let's say you have a really good period of trading, and now you withdraw the 10K. So the 10K comes out of the account, it goes into your pocket, you're super happy. But now we're going to revert that back. When you started with this initial 100K here, your drawdown could go to 90K. But since you've moved it up to 10K, if you've got a 5% trailing drawdown, well, now after your withdrawal, you're back to 100K on that account, but you can only draw it down to 95K. So now after you've taken a withdrawal out, you now get back into the account to trade again, and you have harsher conditions than you did when you first started. And it's even worse on the firms that have drawdown that's fully equal to what the actual maximal drawdown is, because if you have max drawdown of 10% and then you gain 10%, well, now you're back at basically 0% drawdown on the initial funds. So you've actually got to withdraw more than what your trailing drawdown is. Otherwise, you're going to withdraw the funds, be starting an account, and really have no drawdown accessible to you. So it's a bit of a trap to get into those accounts without reading the fine print, of those rules. Now, let's move on here to the next phase. So now that you sort of understand, hopefully, how trailing drawdown works, right? The drawdown trails up as the profits trail up. So it reduces the amount of drawdown that you actually have. Let's talk about why would prop firms implement this rule? Where did this come from? What's actually going on here? Well, the concept of trailing drawdown in itself is not necessarily flawed. It's really the way that the props are using it. So let me explain. The concept of trailing drawdown actually reduces risk of the liquidity provider that's providing the funds and enabling you to trade with more capital than what you have available. In a traditional proprietary trading environment. Now, let's keep in mind the history of prop firms here, because proprietary trading is not always what it is today, guys. I don't know if you guys know this, but 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't just go to some firm, give them a small amount of money, and then they give you a massive amount of money and say that there's a profit split. This has been gamified and gamified and gamified over the years. And it's at this point, it's all fake, and it's just marketing lingo and jargon. And I think a lot of the traders know that and are just sort of playing the game, and the prop firms are playing the game back with the traders. And it's a complete mess, to be quite honest with you. But true proprietary trading, as it was intended to be from its inception, was really meant to allow a trader to gain access to significant amounts of capital compared to what they actually have on hand after proving that they had the skills and talent to risk manage that capital. And it was never about how much money somebody's going to make. It's about, how are you going to protect my capital? I am the liquidity provider. I'm providing you with a market. I'm providing you with funds to trade with. I'm providing you with the other end of the trade, back historically, and with real prop firms, not all the fake ones that are out today that exist and have gamified the thing. So then how are you going to protect the capital? That's really what it comes down to. And this is how hedge funds operate with their liquidity providers and institutional traders and so on, right? So a trailing drawdown was the LP's best way to preserve the capital in the markets that were being created, because you could actually wipe out all of the risk after profits were made. So the only risk from the capital provider, the injection provider, was the initial risk. If I give you an account with 100K in it, and I tell you I will let you draw down 10%, but then I'm going to trail that 10%, well, the only risk initially is that initial 10%. That initial gap between the start and the initial drawdown, this is the only real risk, right? It's the risk lives in this area. But immediately as profits are made, the risk gets smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually it flatlines, and the trader is essentially trading with their own funds at that point. So let me make sure that that's clear, right? In a trailing drawdown scenario, as you start to earn profits in the market and the trailing drawdown trails up with the profits that you've earned, you eventually get to a point where you are no longer using the prop firm's funds, you are using your funds. So what do I mean by that? Let's see if we can draw this out, right? If an account starts with 100K and the prop firm, the provider of the capital, says, hey, I'll let you trade until 90K, until I cut this account off, right? By the way, to be clear, this is not how it works in prop trading today. It's all fake money, demo funds, not real. Don't be fooled. That's a side note. We could do a different video on that. But hypothetically speaking, right, if it were real funds, and where this concept came from historically is what we're talking about now, right? That risk is equal to 10K. And if you are a trader and it costs you, we say the trader's cost is 5K, right? The prop firm has received $5,000. So let's take a look at this, right? So you've got the prop firm here and you've got the trader here. The trader says, hey, I have $5,000. That's not enough to trade with. I will give it to you. And the prop firm says, okay, we'll let you trade with 10K. essentially. Essentially they're taking on 5K of risk, masked as 10K of risk in the markets, right? But as the trailing drawdown kicks in, right? So here's your start balance, and then here's your start DD. If that trailing drawdown moves up, and now all of a sudden it lands here, which is where the prop wants it to land, right? Because we've gained 5K. So now the new balance is here, right? Well, what's really at risk here from the prop firm? Well, it's no longer 10K. They're not risking the 10K. They're risking the 5K now. The trader has banked $5,000 here. Trader's made 5,000, and the total drawdown is 10,000. So the actual drawdown under the starting balance is only 5,000. This gap represents 5K, which, by the way, comes from the trader's initial deposit, right? So the trader pays 5K. They get $10,000 of drawdown. They now profit 5K, and they now only have 5K of drawdown below the initial starting balance, which is what it costs to get into the trading in the first place. So let's say it's 100% profit split just for the sake of easy numbers. But you now have 100K account balance, and you can only draw down to 95K. The difference between where you're starting and where your drawdown is exactly what you paid to get into that account in the first place. So what advantage are you really gaining with the trailing drawdown scenario? There's really no advantage. The advantage is maybe the first few trades where you have a little bit of extra buffer room, but the second you start making profit, your advantage is stolen from you, and you're essentially just trading with the funds that you put into the account to start with. So it's a really slippery way for prop firms to be able to really de-risk the situation. From a sustainability standpoint on the prop firm side, it's great. But from you as a trader, you have to really think about what that advantage actually represents if trailing drawdown is in the mix. You know, the market is all about marginal gains. And if those marginal gains are being stripped from you by the trades that you're making, and now there's a profit split involved with the prop firm, and plus now there's a trailing drawdown element, well, that is significantly favoring the prop firm in that environment. So that's why prop firms use trailing drawdown. It really de-risks their situation. And the big deal here about, why is this so important? Why am I fixating on this? Is because you as the trader are not really gaining any advantage. The trade-off there to enter into an account and pay money up front and then enter into a profit split and then risk not getting paid out because you might get breached by some other random rule that's buried in the T's and C's that you don't know about, all in exchange for what? For trading with drawdown that's equal to or less than what you paid to get into the account anyways. You'd be better off moving into a cent account or live funds of some sort where you don't have those rules. There's not really a capital advantage to you to trade in a drawdown or in a situation with trailing drawdown. That's fixated specific on instant funding. With challenges, it's actually even worse because the trailing drawdown, all it does is make it extremely hard to pass the challenge and extremely hard to trade the funded account. It just adds an element of complexity that simply doesn't need to exist. Here's the big thing, right? You can take that or leave it. Some will disagree with me, some will agree with me on that concept of whether or not it actually makes sense to use a firm that offers trailing drawdown. What I want to get into today is some of the ways that these firms, and we'll share my screen now, the way that they articulate what trailing drawdown is and how they present it to you on the site. So this is really just sort of what to watch out for. So, and we'll get into kind of, more of what I was discussing earlier on the whiteboard. So this is FXify, 100K account, profit target is 10%. On phase one. Now they call it max trailing drawdown. So they are a little more straightforward about this than anybody else I've seen. So good on FXify for doing it this way. This is interesting because you've got a daily loss limit of 4%, plus you've got a max trailing drawdown of 10%. You have to click the little info bar here, and in the tiny text here, it says trailing drawdown trails your closed trading balance until you reach 10% profits in your account. Once you've reached 10% in your account, max trailing locks in at your starting balance and no longer trails with you. So just think about the fact that you have a 10% drawdown, that as you gain profits, and at least this one is of your closed trading balance. So it doesn't go into effect until you close in profit. So if you're just equity swinging with an open position, you won't get screwed. This is probably a model of how it should look and how it should be articulated. But still the advantage here, when you reach 10% in profits, drawdown essentially has moved up 10%. So you're at 100K, you can draw down to 90K. You've now gained 10% on that account, yet you can only draw down 10K still at that point. So that concept of a trailing drawdown is basically wiped out all the drawdown in the account at all. You can't really draw down at all in that account. You're now trading only with the funds that you've made by earning profits, right? In the funded, I believe it's the same thing. So how do you actually even withdraw in that scenario, right? Or you're sort of locked in. So that's probably the best way I've seen it articulated. E8 has a similar thing here, but I mean, they are even tighter here. They've got a max daily on this particular offer of 4% and a trailing drawdown of 6%. Daily drawdown is really your inhibitor here, and you don't have very much past the daily on a trailing drawdown, but eventually the trailing will surpass the max daily, and you've got a 9% profit target. But if we look at the info here, the trailing drawdown is and this is where they start using extra adjectives and things to make it seem more sophisticated than it really is. It's a dynamic risk management rule based on your highest achieved account balance, high watermark. Like, it's fancy jargon and made up words and terms. It's, you know, what it is a way for them to make sure that you fail more challenges and don't overexpose them. It's a risk management tool for them, not for the trader. A lot of times, and not so much here, but in other areas, we see FTMO do this a lot. They put it in your hands, like,
well, we're doing this for your best interest. You're a trader and we're trying to teach you how to manage your capital properly because we care about you, right? It's like,
those are the terms that you sort of see. This is a maximum percentage limit on how far your account balance can fall from its peak. So anyways, yeah, you guys can kind of see it. They're articulating it in the way, you know, they're describing here. You've got to kind of dig into the fine print to really understand how it works. So very easily overlooked, this whole trailing drawdown concept. Now, my favorite one by far is instant funding. Instantfunding.com. This is great, right? Okay, so you want an instant funding account. Let's say Match Trader or whatever it is. I want to do 10K. Let's say I just want to do a small 10K account. Check this out. Profit target. Essentially, what is the minimum amount I need to make on this instant funded account to get a withdrawal? And they put 0. So that would lead you to believe, and also they advertise this all the time, look, payouts are 14 days after your first trade and every week after that, right? So they were really making you feel like this is an outstanding deal. You can withdraw 14 days after you buy the account, you pay one time, you're instantly funded, you don't have to take a challenge, and there's no profit target. So you can you know, theoretically make any amount of profit and withdraw it in 2 weeks. That's incredible. Except if you open this up, it says there's no minimum profit target, but to request payouts, you first need to lock in smart drawdown by reaching 5% profit. When I first read this, I was like, what the fuck is smart drawdown? What does that even mean, right? That's so confusing. What is a smart drawdown? So then to really understand what smart drawdown is, you have to go into their FAQ is really where I went. I searched for, I believe this is how I did it, smart drawdown. I hope this is how you can find it. Here we go. Okay, so what is smart drawdown? Smart drawdown is a hybrid drawdown model that combines the best of static and trailing systems designed to optimize your trading experience. Oh, it's making my trading experience better. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for this amazing enhancement to my trading experience. Thank you, Instant Funding. Okay, starts at minus 10% and automatically adjusts to 5% once you achieve a 5% gain on your account balance. How is that a hybrid drawdown system, and how is that smart? This is ridiculous. This is literally them just making shit up and trying to make this sound really cool for you and like it's in your best interest, right? Your account begins with 10% drawdown from starting balance. Level stays fixed until you reach a 5% gain. Oh, that's the hybrid part. It doesn't slide up until you get to that 5% gain, but you're not allowed to withdraw until you get the 5% gain anyway. So who the hell cares about any of the profit part of that anyways? It's not real profit. I'm not even allowed to withdraw it, right? Okay. So once you achieve a 5% gain, your drawdown automatically adjusts to minus 5% of the starting balance. The new level becomes fixed permanently. When you scale your account, your drawdown will be updated to minus 5 of your new scaled balance. Okay, so here's the key benefits. Fixed limits, clear, predictable drawdown levels. The predictable drawdown level would be a static drawdown level, one that doesn't fucking change when I'm trading, right? Easier scaling. I don't understand. That's just a made up shit. How does that make it easier to scale? That doesn't make any sense at all. And then no time limits. What the fuck does time limits have to do with trailing drawdowns? They just they padded this thing in with bullets, probably with ChatGPT or some shit. Jargon, irrelevant. This is a trailing drawdown, guys. There's nothing different here. Your smart drawdown is stupid, right? Like, it doesn't make it literally doesn't have any added benefit. And so this is what I really hate. Like, when you look at how FXFI and even how E8 has articulated it, you're kind of like, okay, they're being mildly straightforward about it. They're sort of burying it in these weird small areas, like with a small info dot. They're not being, they're not marketing it by any means, but they are sliding it into their rules because it's better for them, which, okay, fine, I can understand. But this is just straight up like over marketed, and it's not in your best interest. So you get into these instant funded accounts and you realize that your profit target is actually 5%. You have to gain 5% before you can withdraw on these instant funded, and your max drawdown is actually 5%, not 10%. While it is 10% initially, it's 5% for the life. If you plan on having that account and you plan on actually withdrawing from that account, then your drawdown is 5%. It's not 10%. So all of a sudden, this account where you're like, hey, I'm paying, $440 and I'm getting $1,000 in drawdown. Well, that seems really interesting. Well, the fact is that you're not. You're actually paying $440 and you're getting $500 in drawdown with an 80% profit split. So your $500 in drawdown actually plays like $400 in drawdown. Hopefully that makes sense. You are buying an account for $440 that truly gives you $500 in drawdown with an 80% profit split. So your $500 drawdown effectively, in terms of what it means to you as a trader, is actually $400. So you're paying $440 and they're giving you $400 in drawdown. That's a ripoff. That doesn't even make any sense. But they'll get you with flashy low prices and coupons and deals, and they'll call things smart drawdown to confuse you and make you not understand what's actually going on here. And oh, by the way, with almost every prop firm, you can look at their Trustpilot reviews and see they'll find reasons not to pay you if there's any reason they don't want to pay you as well, right? And instant funding is no different. Look, guys, this video is not meant to deter you from prop firms entirely, right? Prop firms are an awesome tool in the markets. They allow you to extend capital significantly beyond what you actually have. And when done right, they're very, very powerful. And at POW, we ask all of our traders, we push our traders to go past prop firm challenges and find legitimate firms. You just have to be careful because there are so many out there that are burying weird rules, finding weird reasons to breach you, putting in consistency rules and rules against all kinds of styles of trading. And they're not specific enough with the rules. They leave them vague and open-ended so that they can determine whether or not you breach them based on their own interpretation of that vagueness, right? That's what they try to do. They're trying to gamify it in a way that they can decide when to pay and when not to pay based on interpretation that them and only them are able to actually interpret and decide on what happens next, right? So just be really careful for that. I always preach, sticking with only the best prop firms like FTMO that run a professional ship. They might have some weird rules, and we can talk about some of those later today, are very clear with their description of the rules. They provide videos, they provide expert explanation. They don't hide behind marketing jargon to the extent of what we're seeing here in this video, right? So look, again, this isn't an anti-prop firm video. This is a knowledgeable trader is the winning trader video. You need to read the rules, you need to understand the rules, and you need to ask if you don't understand before spending any amount of money on these types of prop firms, okay? So the next question becomes, what do you do? What's the alternative out there? What do you do as a trader when you look? I mean, personally, whenever I look at prop firms, I don't choose any that have trailing drawdown. And there's tools like Prop Firm Match and other things out there where you can go in and you can investigate and you can filter by, which prop firm has trailing drawdown versus static and what those availabilities are. And the spirit of this launch is around transparency and truly integrity in offering an instant funding model to the market. So I'd encourage everybody to check out POW Funding. It's in our bio, team-pow.com/POW Funding. This isn't your typical prop firm. We don't fill our FAQs with marketing jargon and confusing lingo. It's direct, it's clear, it's concise, and we are partnered directly with a liquidity provider. This isn't a cash flow operation like all the prop firms are today, where we're hoping we get enough challenge fees and we can turn that around fast enough to pay out traders who get withdrawals quickly. There is a true liquidity provider that actually is providing the market and providing the cash flow to move funds around, as needed. That's not to say that the profitability model of the offer isn't dependent on collecting fees to access the account. I mean, that has to exist, but we're not doing so in a rob Peter to pay Paul method. We have specific withdrawal pools set up. We have hedging models built into our algos in the back end that risk mitigate situations. It's run like a true institutional grade proprietary trading firm, like they were originally in the olden days before all the gamification happened, in recent years. But the most important part is that it's fixed drawdown on these instant funded accounts. So you pay once, you get an account, the drawdown is fixed for the life of the account. The more profits you make, the bigger your drawdown gets. It's up to you if you want to start to withdraw. If you don't withdraw, you can continue to extend your available drawdown and you can trade this just like you would your own live capital and withdraw it at any time. Right. So I encourage you, click the link in the bio or in the description of this video. Check out POW Funding, see if there's an offer there that you like, and reach out to us if you have any questions. Otherwise, if you want to be a part of the POW community, where we also provide all the automated trading tools and the training to be profitable on these funded accounts, you can click the link in the description there to put in an application to become a member of POW. It's a short application. We'll then reach out to you on WhatsApp to have a conversation to finalize any questions. If you're a good fit and you're approved through the application process, we'll send you an offer and you can join the community. Currently over 500 traders in that community trading with all of our different EAs, following the blueprint of our masterclass where we stack prop firm capital. We focus on sustainable 3% gains every month, compound investing that into multiple different accounts and growing a massive amount of cash flow over time that's sustainable into the long run, that will allow you to quit your job, will allow you to gain sustainability and longevity in the market. So if you want to learn more about that, check out the other videos on the YouTube channel, click the link in the description. And if you want access to instant funded capital, no trailing drawdowns, click the link for POW Funding. Subscribe to the channel if you got any amount of value out of this video. Like, comment, share it with a friend. We're so excited to share value in the trading markets in a world full of cloudiness, vagueness, and confusion. We are the direct, straightforward, non-flashy. You won't see Lambos or anything on this channel. You'll see just realistic, reasonable, and highly, highly valuable lessons in the market that we've learned ourselves firsthand. So subscribe, like, share, comment, all of that, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you guys so much for joining.